stage our house is on fire. And I'm deciding which bathroom is the
More
safest
fire
to go into,
rooms.
because one's got lead-like windows and one was in the middle of the house. Stupid things that you think of because you're in this fire.
Too late, you got right out of there.
There were entire townships that got destroyed with little to no help, with no chance for emergency services to get there and help people to save lives. And so for Marysville, yeah, there were a few people there on the day that tried to help, but this fire came so quickly and so without warning.
Household.
Oh,
yeah.
By and large, a lot of people there stood no chance.
There's Trent's house over there. There's the neighbours out the back. I've burned all my face, trying to fight the fires. I did as much as I could. I saved my dog, that's all I was worried about.
One thing led to another, and I thought it's probably crazy to stay here.
Okay.
The house on fire, what else can we do?
Sorry.
Well, what an awful position to be in. Like, your home is normally your refuge, and looking at that and thinking, that ain't gonna save me. And thinking my best option is to drive off into the distance. That was kind of the scenario they were in. Drive off into the distance. And that may be a death trap.
Nothing.
But the one certainty is staying here is an absolute guaranteed death trap.
Yeah. And you got nothing. You're just driving off with nothing.
Left the house, Sharon had grabbed her towel over her head, and we raced out to the ute and tried to drive out. We drove up the main street of Marysville, but in the morning we had been gardening, and the whole back of my ute was full of clippings and cuttings from the garden, all that stuff, and it actually caught fire. We realised the truck was on fire, so we had to stop and start throwing that stuff off at the top of the main street.
And at one stage I looked out through the motorroom windows.
Is that called like Master Street?
Travelling down the street.
Oh, I forgot about that.
It may have been even like a metre deep, which is absolute very hard to describe. At some stage during the firestorm, I realised that I'd lost my phone, so I'd lost contact with us in Dalton. But I found that quite distressing.
What did he do?
When we were
Lost
driving,
his phone, so he couldn't contact
one of the
them.
fears we had was the wind, because I think the wind was about 130 kilometres an hour or something. And it was blowing down trees, so Charity said we need to find somewhere where...
Blowing down trees? Are you kidding me?
Which was just...
In Melbourne, Australia?
So we literally parked in the middle of the roundabout.
One of my good friends from the fire brigade, and me and the local policeman, we went up to the house and had a bit of a walk through, and we actually found his and Dalton in their remains in the house.
God.
The victims include a firefighter's wife and children who became trapped while he tackled the blaze. Fires are still burning across the state. 7 are considered large blazes.
Yeah, so the next day, I mean, I got up before sunrise and packed a bag. It was kind of one of those days as a journo, you know that you're not coming home for a while. And so I headed into the office.
On that Sunday morning, we were reporting from the fire zone.
I'm live from Victoria today, where an absolute tragedy has unfolded overnight. There are dozens of fires burning throughout the state.
14 people had died, and that was catastrophic. It wasn't until much, much later that we realised the extent of the tragedy.
And I remember chatting to our chief of staff, who said, look, we've got some information there might have been a fire at Marysville, but I don't know, we haven't been able to shore it up. Tom, can you just go and have a look at Marysville? Maybe it's a bumps to you, but go and check it out for us. Marysville is probably about an hour and a half, 2 hours, depending on traffic, getting out to the northeast of Melbourne. And so we drive out there, and it gets to a point where all of a sudden you're out of suburbia, you start winding up these roads into a bit of sort of hilly countryside, and just the landscape turned black.
Oh. 8 a.m. and look at the bloody
Yeah.
sky.
And I thought, oh, okay, this is bad. Trees are still across the road. Well, no one else has come through here. I mean, we're kind of the first people heading into this area. And all of a sudden, my camera and I stopped talking. Like, as we were driving in there, just like, neither of us kind of wanted to say what we knew we were heading into. And all of a sudden, we've just discovered Armageddon. It looked like the end of the world. We started seeing burnt out cars on the side of the road. In one instance, cars had collided head on.
No, my PC. No, my PC.
And I don't know, you're driving past it, you don't really want to look in the car because
Bodies, yeah.
you know what was going to be there.
Yeah.
We get to Marysville, it's a grid layout. We drive down one street, back the next. Up the next, back the next. There's just nothing left. Burnt out cars, burnt out homes. Put simply, Marysville resembles a war zone. There's no other way to describe this. There are houses levelled as far as the eye can see. If we just have a look around this small area that we're in at the moment, you start thinking, well, hang on. Where are all the people? Where are all the people that lived in these houses? Did they get out? Did they get any warning that this fire was coming? And out of it, we saw someone walk towards us with a blanket over their shoulders.
We went to our home, which wasn't there. When we walked down the main street, Tom Steinford came over to us.
Her face was just the face of someone who'd seen things that no one should ever see.
We all had fire plans, and the ones that were going to leave left. But then the trees went over the road, and our fire plans, it was just too fast.
How scary was it?
Very scary. It was very scary.
She literally just had a blanket on. That was it. They were her worldly possessions when we encountered her, and everything else around her was gone.
I said to Tom, I think we've lost some people, and your brain's sort of adding up what we know so far. But he was very kind. I think they're,
And do you know who they were or what happened with them?
Yeah, I do, but I don't think I want to talk about it.
No, that's fine.
It's too close. We're in such a small community. And, yeah.
No, that's fine.
We lost 22 friends that we knew very well.
That's all.
Yeah. She had just somehow survived the worst day of her life. That clearly she knew a lot of her community hadn't.
Oh, hard for him.
Yeah, look at him.
It's only now that we're starting to grasp just how serious the situation is here. This ended up being the worst of all the fire zones from the disaster that ensued yesterday. And you can just get a grip now, start to look on how many properties there are here that have been lost. We have no idea how many people stayed to defend their homes. Call into the office. Hey, it's what's happened? We're okay. Marysville's not.
173 people died on Black Saturday. That's the worst death toll in any Australian bushfire.
I remember when Black Saturday was taking off, and I can remember hearing that 14 people had died. And I said, that can't be true. It can't be true. Because we knew that they were burning. We knew that it was bad, and I went, well, just hold off on that. I don't think that'll be true. 14 people, that won't be true. It was true, and then, as the hours went by, the news just kept getting so much worse.
Why did 173 stay?
I remember as we flew towards Kinglake, I remember looking down from a helicopter and seeing squares on the ground. And I thought, that's where houses used to be.
Shit, look at it.
I mean, I've seen wars and disasters overseas, but I remember thinking, this is literally my backyard.
Well, welcome to the main street of Kinglake, or at least what's left of Kinglake. This is where many people fled last night as their homes started to burn.
I walked up to a petrol station.
This is what's left of the local service station after it went up in a fireball.
The Bowser was still on fire.
Shit.
And I thought, this is not normal, this is not safe.
The fire just came straight through. It went through like a bullet.
Yeah.
It was like a tornado. And I've never been so terrified in all my life.
Oh.
The list of people who had died grew. And among those lives lost, there was one who was closer to us than we ever could have imagined.
That's awful fire news.